Thank you to my family and friends who've traveled from far and wide. My family is here. Thank you. My wife has come from California, LA. I have two aunts that flew in from Florida, my beautiful nieces. And my sister, who I want to highlight because she was in the first contingent of Prep for Prep 9. And I just say thank you, Prep 9, because if that didn't happen, it would have been some friction in the house, I want to thank Ruth Jurgensen. So I've gotten to know Ruth over the last year, and I've been thoroughly impressed. I think she's an amazing person. There are some people that lead with their minds, some people lead with their hearts, and there are the few of us who lead with both, and that's Ruth. It's no wonder that she's taken prep to the next level. And she understands the importance of alumni, and she brings us in, and that's why I'm here. And I want you to understand the significance of this moment. So I am the first Prep for Prep alum to be the honorary. And I understand what that means. I was at a ball last week. A CEO of a major private equity firm received an award. He brought all of his friends, other CEOs of banks, other CEOs of companies, titans in Fortune 500 companies. They were all there, all writing 100,000, six-figure checks. And I said to myself, what would happen if one of the people that were the recipients of this nonprofit, if they were receiving an award, how much money would they raise? And then I thought about the courage it took for Ruth to do what she's doing now. It was risky, so thank you, Ruth. Above all, though, I like to recognize one person that's here, a woman that had 2 children while she was in college, but still managed to graduate on time. A single mom, she moved to the Bronx and began her life. When her neighbor was murdered, and she thought that the murderer might come back for the witnesses, she lifted up her family and moved across the Bronx within 2 days, two days to the other side of the Bronx. It was the middle of the year, so she had to enroll her kids in a neighboring in a neighborhood that was next door. And during that walk, a 20-minute walk, grown men would get in her face and call her the N-word, curse to their children, threaten them. And she did that every day. Partly as a result of that, she joined the NAACP, and it would eventually become the president of that section of the Bronx, NAACP. And later on, she would become the president of the New Rochelle chapter of the NAACP. When the Central Park Five, now the exonerated 5, were wrongfully arrested, she was among a small handful of people that went downtown and protested. Devastated by the results of that, she gathered her son and his friends, and she directed them what to do if they were ever confronted by the police. 3 weeks later, when her son and his friends were stopped and accused of stealing a bike, and the police put guns in their faces, it was her words: be quiet, remember their badge numbers, remember the license plate number, and come home to me. And that probably saved their lives. The next day, she went down to the police station and raised holy hell. A Bronx High School of Science grad, she valued education. She received her master's and a doctorate. And so when she heard about a program called Prep for Prep, she went to PS 106, met with the principal, and said, my son needs to be part of the group that takes this test. I'm proud to say that Dr. Carla Woolbright is my mother, and I am her son. Everything I ever was, everything I ever will be is because of the sacrifices that she made. Second to my mom, prep has had the biggest impact on my life. Now, I remember being in 5th grade and getting into prep, and I remember taking the test and wondering if I'd be one of the, it's 5% now, huh? I don't think I would have made the cut. It was 10% back then. I think I was like in the 7th percentile. But I remember wondering if I'd make it, and I got the acceptance letter, and I was I didn't really understand. My mother did all the research. She knew. But all of a sudden, I was in summer school. And I had 5 to 6 hours of homework every day, and that was a new thing because homework to me for the previous 5 years was what I did in between the commercials when I was watching the Thundercats or G.I. Joe. I knew I wouldn't make it. I wondered how long I'd keep this farce up. I did it. But the fall came, and I was feeling a little bit better, and I was like, all right, maybe I will make it. By the next summer, I felt like the man. I felt like I was actually the smartest person in Contingent 6. Oh, they're here. That's how I felt. But we all felt that. And that was prep. Entered Calhoun in 7th grade, and I breezed through the first 2 years because of prep. Prepared us, breezed through. But the other way that prep showed up, and I have to say this, and the biggest way they showed up was when it was time to apply to colleges. I remember my mom and I went to the college fair at Trinity, and we walked in, and Harvard, Yale, and all these schools we had heard of were there. Heard of them because my mom had bought me a pajama set when I was 6 years old and had Harvard, Yale. You remember that, Mom? But we sat at a table of a recruiter who was just smiling. And I won't say the name of the school because, I just don't say the name of the school. But for our purposes, let's just call it Hogwarts. So I sat down, and this recruiter from Hogwarts was like, you're amazing. You're exactly what we're looking for. You have to come here. And my mother and I, not knowing anything else, just sat there for 30 minutes. Talked to a few schools. We left there saying, you know what? I'm going to Hogwarts. I go to Calhoun, and I go to the college counselor there, Ted. Amazing college counselor. And he suggested some schools, and I said, nope. I'm going to Hogwarts. He said, Hogwarts is a pretty good school. We don't have any Calhoun alum that went, but I hear it's a magical place. I can't believe y'all laughed at that. I had met Kim Wilson, who was a college counselor at the prep college fair, Kim Wilson. And so it was my turn to go see her now at prep. And she goes, let me see your list. Give her the list. Hogwarts is number 1. She looks at the list, and she just crumples it up, throws it across the room, and she goes, Kareem, you are not going to Hogwarts. Harvard, Yale, Penn, Williams, Wesleyan, Amherst, these are the schools that would love to have you. She took my Contingent 6 mates, and we all went on college tours, and Diane talked about it. And yeah, one of our classmates, she didn't say his name, but he's sitting right there. Got kicked off the bus. And so I eventually went to Duke. And I would pop in on her office, and we became fast friends, and I realized I was her favorite. I was her favorite. Last year, one of my Contingent 6 mates, Orlando Bishop, who's a phenomenal, clap for Orlando, he's not here, but phenomenal life coach, director in LA. He was giving a testimonial on Facebook, and he was just talking about the the most significant moments in his life. And when he got to the part where Kim said, "Orlando, you are not going to Hogwarts," I just smiled. Because I realized I wasn't special. We were all special, and she loved us, and Prep loved us, and they treated us all the same way. And we're all grateful for Prep for that. Now, Kim passed away in 2001, actually completing a master's at Duke University. So I just wanted to honor her by bringing her up here. I'll end by telling you why I think I was even considered to be the honoree. I'm still confused, as I'm sure you all are. But I think the next example I'm going to give you is exactly as a result of Prep for Prep and the courage and the confidence that was instilled in me through my experience. I own a company called Nature Aid. My business partner, Claude Tellis, is here. Grant Hill is here as well. He's an investor in the company. And we sell plant-based meal replacements. There's going to be a gift bag at the end of the event. Please grab one. And our whole mission is reversing diet-related illnesses that disproportionately affect people of color. We've been trying to get into Costco for many, many years. And we finally decided to, and I'll give the credit to Claude, he's sitting here. If he weren't here, I'll take the credit. Claude wrote the perfect email to the CFO of Costco, and we ended up getting a call. His name was Richard Galanti, still is. We got a call within 10 minutes, and he invited us to his house the next day. We go to his house, and he's like, I'm really impressed by you guys. I read the email, I Googled you, and you guys are really, really impressive. He said, I would love to help you to get into Costco. There's nothing I could really do. I like to invest in the company. And we were like, nah, then we'll never get into Costco, right? Well, thank you. 4 years later, and we stayed in contact with this guy. We stayed in contact with the power of networking and maintained the bridge. And finally, we call him in 2020, and we say, look, we need this to happen. We need you to do one thing for us because you've offered to help plenty of time. You need to meet the CEO of Costco. And at that meeting, we bought Grant Hill. And we got the meeting, we said to the CEO, first of all, he was an amazing person, very, very charming, very warm. And he said, look, I want more diversity at Costco. I want more diversity in the C-suite. That's what I want. And we said to him, in the nicest way possible, the reason that you don't have the diversity you seek is because you practice what we call systemic bias. You have a mandate that you don't want to be more than 20% of a company's revenue, but if the average product in all 8 regions does $50 million in sales, well, how many minority-owned companies do you think are doing $250 million in sales they can qualify to be in Costco? 0. You will never have a black-owned company, never a minority-owned company. You probably won't even have a woman-owned company. And it's not outside forces, it's the 2 people in this room who can make that happen. He's a little embarrassed, but he said, you know what? I never really thought about that. How about we give you 5 stores and see what happens? I said, we'd be grateful for 5 stores. Overnight, 5 stores turned into 40 stores, and now we have 114 stores. And then he said, now that we're having this conversation, what else am I missing? Great question. Claude said, well, Costco does $220 billion in sales, and some of it you reinvest in, and some of it you just have in a savings account somewhere just accruing 1 or 2%. Have you ever thought about putting some of that money in black-owned banks? And he said, no, do you know any? And we did know some, but we knew Lisk. Lisk had been trying to help us by bringing some black banks to us when we were in some trouble. And so we were aware of them. 3 weeks later, Costco gave $25 million to Lisk. Now, the final thing he said was, now I'm interested in you two guys. He understands the value of his office. He's the most important, significant CEO in retail in the world. How did you journey through life to get into my office? And we both said inner city education. I was in a program called Prep for Prep. Claude was in a program called Lead. That's why we're here. He said, we're going to do something we've never done in the history of Costco. Half the profits from the sales of your company, we're going to donate to the programs of your choice. Now you have to remember, he gave us 5 stores, so he's thinking 10,000, 15,000. That's, I'd do that right now. But I just told you, we up to 114 stores. And in December, he wrote a $197,000 check to Prep for Prep and Lead program each. That is what you call intentionality. That is equity. So I called Ruth a couple of days before that check came through, and I said, hey, I got a surprise for you. You ready? I got there, and she said, Kareem, oh my God, this is the single largest alumni-generated donation ever. You have to join the board. It's December. Our next board meeting is January. You got to come. So I go, and I meet the wonderful board. An amazing board. And I meet Lisa Cashin, who's the chairman of the board. And she's, we hit it off immediately. She's grateful for what I've done. She'd heard. And I tell her the story, and she just stops and looks at me, and I'm like, she goes, I'm the vice chair of LISC. I received that $25 million. I talked to Richard Galani, and I never knew that it was originated from you. We call that providence. So I want to end by saying congratulations to the graduates. Look forward. I want you to understand something. You are the cream of the crop. You are the next leaders. You are more powerful than you think. Actually, you think you're powerful now, because I remember being where you are. You couldn't tell me if my flat top wasn't high. You're going to become more powerful than you ever imagined. You will walk into CEO offices and you will be bold. And you will say what needs to be said when you're in that room because of the confidence instilled within you here at Prep for Prep. And I look forward to reading about you and watching you. And one last thing, the people who are here who support Prep, thank you. Thank you. But the journey doesn't end when these kids go to college, right? If you support them, then when they're starting their own businesses, you've already seen what they could do when you give them a little bit of education. Let's see what they can do when you give them a little opportunity, a little money. And so I ask you to do all you can and dig more. So thank you for this honor. This is the greatest honor of my life, and I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.